So, I'm Ben Harvey, CEO of InnerBelief.com, and I'm here with Marisa Peer to talk about men's mental health.
And it is November Men's Mental Health Month, but we believe that it should be Men's Mental Health Month, every day, every week, because men statistically are having the biggest struggles with mental health. It's the elephant in the room, they don't talk about it enough. And RTD always wants to find a solution. What's the problem? How can we fix it? So we're here to shine a light on why are men suffering so badly, so disproportionately, and what can we all do to make sure that stops.
We are, and let's touch on that statistic. In the UK, the biggest killer in men under 50 isn't heart disease, isn't cancer, it's suicide. And that's up from, I believe it was 37 years of age, now it's gone up to 50. Worryingly, that statistic is the second largest killer of teenage boys is suicide. So I think today we want to address the stigma around mental health, and this is going to be a start of a series of podcasts that we'll be doing with the Inner Belief team. So myself as CEO, this isn't just a job. I'm not here just to work for Marisa Peer or to work for RTT or to develop InnerBelief.com. This is much bigger than that. And everybody on the team feels exactly the same. We've all got our own stories. We've all had our own challenges. And we want to break down that stigma. We want to talk about our own experiences and why we do what we do every single day, because it's to try and help as many people as we can.
And one of the things I love about that is that everyone's story is everyone's story. We can all relate to someone's story and go, oh, I relate to that. I understand you because I went through that. And you have some very interesting statistics. You were famous in sport.
Almost.
Well, I think you were famous in sport.
Thank you.
You were a kid who was what I call one of the lost boys. You had one person who believed in you. And with everything going for you, you went through tremendous depression. So I'd love to hear your story from being a young kid going to school right up into making it and then losing it. So start right at the beginning, if you don't mind.
There's going to be a lot of stories through this, because the reality is I've faced mental health, depression, and huge struggles in many aspects of my life, from being a child, a teenager, a young man, all the way through to even challenges this year. So my early days, brought up in a working class family in Bristol, and at 13 I had a sliding doors moment. Was potentially about to be expelled from one school, and I ended up getting a scholarship to a very prestigious rugby school called Colston's Collegiate, and sport was my way out of a really tough period, and that then led to me only 5 years later playing for England under 18s, representing my country, making the 2001 Australia, Canada, New Zealand tour, and again representing my country. And that accumulated in me signing a professional contract with the Premiership team Wasps. It was all I ever wanted. I remember telling my teachers, what are you going to be when you grow up? Well, I'm going to be a professional rugby player. Okay, but what are you going to be? Well, no, I'm going to be a professional rugby player. I saw it, I felt it, I believed it.
And you worked for it.
Exceptionally hard. Without me even knowing it, I was using power of visualization and manifestation. As a 16, 17-year-old boy, I saw myself with that England shirt on, holding the rose, singing the national anthem, even to the detail where a single tear came down my face. And that happened 21st of April 2001, playing against France at the county ground in Exeter. Stood there singing the national anthem, and that very, very visualization occurred. Didn't really take any notice of it at the time. I thought, this is cool, I'm playing for my country. But things changed. 3 years into my contract and trying to make it as a full-time Premiership player, I hadn't made that transition. I hadn't been picked up into the next phase of the England setup. The first team squad, Gats, didn't want to sign me, so I ended up going down a division. And I very quickly realised that my dream wasn't going to materialise. So I took myself out of professional sport really young. I think I stepped away at about 23, 24, not because of injury, not because of anything other than I hadn't achieved the goal of playing for my country at full senior squad or making it in the Premiership. So I hadn't met my standards and I hadn't made the cut. And that was the first time I really dealt with severe mental health.
Tell me about the severe mental health. Tell me what symptoms came upon you and how did you feel about that and how did you deal with it?
So I went from every day going to the rugby club, being looked after, being a professional athlete, everything was taken care of. We were really, really protected from real life, even to the food I ate, training every day. You don't realize that the chemicals that you're producing in your body are such feel-good chemicals.
Oxytocin, yeah.
Exactly. And I was physically healthy, I was mentally healthy, even though it was a really, really high pressure environment. That pressure was really positive pressure for me. It was a privilege to be in that situation. I then made the very proactive decision that this wasn't going to allow me to get to the pinnacle, and I stepped away. And the next thing I know, I'm in an office at a desk, working 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And I guess depression manifested through feeling a complete loss of identity, feeling like a failure, not being able to sleep, not being able to concentrate, and if I'm really honest, just feeling consumed by sadness.
Describe more about the sadness. What were you particularly sad about?
It was, even though I was proactive and made the decision to step away from trying to be a professional athlete, because I could see the path. I realized that you have a very small window in pro sport, and I hadn't made it. I hadn't made it as a Premiership player, and I wasn't therefore going to go and make it as an international. And being a semi-pro for me in rugby wasn't really, it was a failing in my part. It was kind of like, well, let's go and focus on something else. But when you're 13, 14, 15, and you're not going out and doing the things you normally would as a teenage boy, socializing and going to parties, and all you're doing is acting and dedicating your life to be a professional athlete, and you've made sacrifices, when those sacrifices unfortunately don't materialize to the goal, it left me feeling like I wasn't enough, I wasn't good enough. And because I wasn't good enough in rugby, was I good enough as a person? Was I good enough as a man? Was I good enough as a son, as a brother, as a friend? And it really hit me hard, because I went from being celebrated, everybody talking about me, being in the local newspapers, being interviewed by local TV, to all of a sudden feeling like I'd let everybody down, and I let myself down.
When was the first time, do you think, going right back, you began to feel this not enoughness, which is really the common denominator of all of our issues? I'm not good enough, worthy enough, talented enough, successful enough. There's so many ways that we don't feel enough, but no one is born like that. No baby says, I'm not enough, don't look at me. So if you were to track back at your life like you're watching a movie, when do you think you first bought into, I, Ben Harvey, am not enough?
So I'm probably not a normal case, because I had this incredible teacher called Miss Kozlowski. I told you about her. And she ingrained it in me. I must have been at junior school, so maybe 7, 8, 9 years old. But she said to me, you, Ben Harvey, you can be anything you want to be if you put your mind to it. And I remember this going around my mind, and it really stuck with me. I used to believe that I could be anything I want to be. I want to be a astronaut, I could be an astronaut. If I want to be a doctor, I'll be a doctor. 11, 12, 13 years old, my ability in sport became really apparent. It was the first thing I was really good at. And I had this deep, deep inner belief that I was going to be a professional rugby player, that I was going to play for my country. So for me, I came from this true deep, there was never a question. Ben Harvey was going to make it as a rugby player. So the first time I really, really felt it and experienced it was when that dream that had become a reality was gone. And I think that's why it hit me and hurt me so hard. And I think this is why, when we touched on earlier, professional athletes have such a struggle transitioning from pro sport into normal life, or why people that serve the military talk about becoming a civilian, because you've come from this feeling of belonging, you've come from this feeling of it's a family, it's connected, and there's so much support.
You're right, it's huge connection, and human beings are hardwired to find connection, avoid rejection. Often when we retire, people say, you know, I became so depressed when I retired from, say, the fire brigade or the police force, because the camaraderie, the belonging, the connection. Kids get into gangs, they get into cults, because we are wired to need connection. One of the reasons AA is so very successful is the connection you get with other people. So without realizing, you were deeply connected to your colleagues. You had the same goals, you were a team, you're a tribe, you were like brothers. And suddenly that all ended and you didn't have that connection anymore, which is one of the causes of depression. There are 3 that I found. And one of them is being disconnected. Not following your heart's desire, being disconnected and believing you're not enough are the 3 things I find, well, in my experience, that cause depression. I'm not enough. I'm different, so I can't connect. I want something that's not available to me. And you kind of had all of those. You weren't enough to stay in rugby.
Yep.
You were disconnected from your tribe, your bodies, your team. And what you dreamed of was no longer available.
Exactly that. But it was very odd because it was almost self-inflicted. Because I made that decision. You know, I could have carried on playing semi-pro rugby, but I'd already started a path of working in advertising and media. Because when I went pro in 2001, the game had only been pro a very short amount of time. So in a way, I was really lucky because, you know, I had this fledgling career working for this great ad agency in Soho, pretending I was a madman, and then running off to be a professional rugby player. So I felt like I had the world at my feet. I had this amazing kind of career that I loved and was super passionate about, working in advertising and marketing and media buying, and then a professional sportsman. So for me, that was this, it saved me as well, having that, because if I didn't have that career, and I would have probably carried on chasing the dream of being a professional rugby player at a semi-professional level. So I made that super tough decision, but the following 12 months, that transition, I didn't realize it at the time, but yeah, it was mental health, it was depression, it was anxiety.
Of course.
And I remember coming home one day from a long day at work. I'd just bought my first house. On paper, I was super successful, early 20s, buying houses, doing this. I walked in and my mum was there, and I just dropped to my knees, like really dramatically, and just uncontrollably cried. I just couldn't stop the emotion.
Finish that sentence. What you said, I dropped to my knees and cried uncontrollably. Because, and then end that sentence for me.
I think the reality was that was my way of saying I needed help. And
did you get help?
No.
So you needed help, but you just, that thing about be a man, man up, don't cry like a girl.
Yeah, it was like a moment, and everyone was worried, but I brushed it under the carpet, and I did what a lot of men do. I went insular.
Yeah.
I buried it.
Yeah.
My therapy for me was finding my next challenge.
But did you use anything else, like drugs or drinking or anything like that? Because when you bury something, it comes back. You know, when you try to bury your feelings, they regroup and come back stronger than ever. And here, the stomach is the seat of all emotions. We often push them down with food or drink or drugs or... An addiction is anything that takes you away from a bad feeling to a good feeling. It can be screen time, it can be shopping. So you buried the feelings, but you see your feelings are the most real thing you have. You can't Netflix or chocolate or drink or medicate with your feelings. They're going to come back because they're real. So you buried them like a man. And then what happened to them? You tried to bury them, but they wanted to come up. So what happened next when the feelings said, I'm coming back?
So this makes us leap forward to my second period of really severe mental health. So what happened the first time, I was a 20-something-year-old boy, really. pivoted my focus and attention in career, media. Fast forward, 27 years old, I launched my first company, Virtuoso. So I went from failed rugby career to 4 or 5 years later, launching my first business, because all of that skills, mindset, mastery, you know, things I didn't realize I was doing, but
Message.
that you've taught me and made me understand about my own behaviors. I applied them from what I learned as a teenager, a young man in sport, and I applied them in business. And I launched my first company at 27, Virtuoso, with one of my best friends, Steve McClay, and we built a tribe. I replicated what I'd lost, and it was so successful. But the sacrifice then was my first marriage, and it was incredibly painful, incredibly destructive.
Why did your first marriage stop working?
I have addictive personality. I'm obsessed. I think I want to talk about obsession. Conor McGregor, Messi, Ronaldo, Elon Musk, you know, Steve Jobs, held up on these huge pedestals. Brilliance. Conor McGregor himself talks about, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. This is my life. I was that. But you have to be very, very careful about what your obsessions are. My obsession was my business Virtuoso, my work family, and I went from a life where I didn't have much as a kid to all of a sudden creating a huge amount of success, wealth, and I focused so much on that my marriage was fell apart, and as a result, I ended up not seeing my children because of that breakdown, and that led me to a really destructive period in my life. Really destructive. So I had everything. I was very successful, but I had lost my two sons.
So that's already happened twice. You lost your rugby career, and then you lost your marriage and access to your two sons. And then how did you cope with that? Were you still keeping everything in?
No, I lost it completely. Alcohol and drugs.
So you still kept it in, but you used alcohol and drugs to keep it in.
Yeah, if you ask anybody, like my team that were around me, again, it was always business, but they were friends as well as business associates. You say, I don't know, you deal with this, you're so strong. And I thought I was strong, and I was dealing with it, and I was operating and doing what I need to do.
You were just pushing it all down.
I was self-medicating, yeah. I just couldn't really deal with it, so I turned to alcohol, recreational drugs.
To numb the pain. So the pain is the emptiness inside of you, All our addictions are caused by our unmet needs, and our unmet needs come from the emptiness inside. And I love this expression, the feeling that cannot find its expression in tears will cause other organs to weep. So you didn't cry, but your body did a good job of doing it for you. So you said you kind of fell apart. You know, we're human beings. We're supposed to cry, weep, grieve. And we used to do all of those. And now we're very good at medicating our feelings. But our feelings don't want to be medicated. They want to be heard, you know. We need to feel our feelings. We need to let them out. We do something in RTT called AAA, AAA. And the AAA says, okay, the first base is become aware of what you're feeling. The second base is accept, and the third is articulate it. So let's go back to one. I don't know what I'm feeling, because when I feel anything, I have a drink, I put on the television, I go on eBay and buy something. I do anything except feel. So most of us aren't even aware. But when you do go, okay, I'm aware of feeling, I feel a failure, I feel rejected, I feel abandoned, I feel hurt. The next thing is you must say, okay, don't go, well, what have I got to be hurt about? Or why should I feel abandoned? You've got to say it. I accept the feeling. It's the most real thing I have. So the second thing is to say, okay, I'm going to accept it. Today I feel like I'm deeply disappointed in my marriage or my child or myself. I'm aware of it. I'm going to accept it. I'm not going to deny it. It's like saying I'm going to die being diabetic. You never deny being diabetic. But we deny our feelings. So you've got to go, okay, I'm going to accept it, And now the third step is I'm going to actually articulate. That means speak it out loud. I'm going to say, today I feel disappointed, I feel abandoned, I feel neglected, I feel alone, I feel lonely. And of course you can't necessarily say that maybe to your boss, but you can always shut yourself in the toilet, turn on the taps. You have to say it, because feelings are like gas, they're in or they're out, and they cause a lot more pain when they're in. So you've got to learn, I've got to let this out. So again, you have to go back to, okay, let me be aware of a feeling. I feel disappointed in my life. I'm going to accept that I'm disappointed. And I'm going to even say it. Today I feel disappointed in myself or my partner or even my child or my boss, because when you feel it, the feeling goes, oh, you got it, and it will go. When you ignore it, it's rather like a classroom of children saying, notice me, and it will get stronger and stronger. So you did the classic thing. You push the feelings down with drink and drugs. And I've worked with hundreds of thousands of addicts. I've never met one ever in my life who said, I'm enough. None of them felt enough. And so they use drugs to numb out that pain, the pain of being yourself and being disappointed in yourself, or feeling yourself is not enough. The very thing, the not enoughness. If you're not enough, you need more. More what? More drugs, more alcohol, more sex, more shopping, more food, more stuff, because you're not enough. But of course, although these were all feelings and the feelings were real, what they were based on was not real, because you've always been more than enough.
Yeah.
But you didn't know it, and you didn't feel it.
Yeah. I think there'll be people watching this, and I guess I'd ask the question to you. How are you honest with yourself? Because there was an element of there's people that will seem to be so successful. I know you've worked with so many people that are superstars on TV, on radio, across CEOs of global companies, world leaders, royal family. The list goes on, and we can't say who they are, but I was seen as super successful working for $1 billion company, and I was celebrated by so many people. But then on that side of my life, I was a failure. I felt complete and utter loss. And I still managed to balance my life of being brilliant and a great leader and running and being a really big contributor to this successful business. But then on my personal life, utter destruction and utter failure. And I think it was hard to be able to balance this complete and utter contradiction of who I was as a person.
Yeah.
How and if people are sitting there and they can't understand their thoughts, because when you're in depression, anxiety, and you're dealing with mental health, how do we, and you're a man, and it may be very insular, like what's the things we can do? What's the processes? What are the steps we can take?
Well, funny you said the word loss, because all pain is linked to loss. Even of things we haven't, we say, I lost my mind, I've lost my looks, I lost the job, we lost the baby, I lost that contract. So you have to go back and say, but did I really lose, You lost a dream, but of course there's a phase. I love every stage is a dream that's dying or something new that's coming to birth. As the rugby ended, you went into advertising and you were very good at it, but you took with it that feeling of I'm not enough, I've failed. Instead of, you see, everything is a reframe. That didn't work out. Sometimes we have something called my friend failure. I tried that and I failed because it wasn't meant to be forever. You wanted to be a rugby player. You never quite made those heights. But you can say, well, I learned a lot and I found something just as good that actually pays more.
Sure.
But you took with you that feeling of failure. And the only way you can fail is failing to try. Everything you try that doesn't work out, you've learned something amazing. But because you believed you had failed rather than learned something, you took with you that sense of failure, and then when your marriage ended, you took more failure and more failure until you had to escape from the feeling of failure into drugs, when the truth is you hadn't failed. It's like saying, I remember when my first boyfriend, when I was 17, dumped me. It was entirely my fault because of the way I behaved, but I felt so rejected. And I didn't know what to do with myself because he didn't love me anymore. But of course now I think, well, I'm so glad that didn't work, because he wasn't the person, I wasn't meant to be with him. At 17, I thought I was, but now I can read from him and think, oh gosh, that was such a good thing. That would have been a very small life for me. And I wasn't meant for that life. But at the time, I could only feel he doesn't want me, what's wrong with me, which most people of 17 when a relationship doesn't work feel like that.
Yeah.
But when you can reframe rejection as, gosh, it can be the best thing that ever happened to me. I got rejected by him. I moved to America. I had a community. I got kicked out of college. Again, my fault. I could have stayed there. I didn't apply myself. I knew it wasn't for me. And they did me a massive favor by asking me to leave because I went to work for Jane Fonda.
How quickly did that
California.
happen?
What? The
'Cause
reframing it.
Yeah, because I've experienced it my entire life, where I've gone from this moment of failure, and we talk about the negatives. You know, some of it's manifested in really extreme behaviour. But I used to take those failures, and crikey, it would light a fire in my belly, and then I would use that as motivation.
Yeah, but even you were doing, you still had the feeling that you were motivated, but you still felt like a failure. You could be motivated and not feel like it.
Fear was a motivator for me, for sure. Fear of failure, fear of
I don't know how quickly, because you see, change is often retroactive. We look back and say, wow, when did I change? You know, I met that same boyfriend many years ago. He says to me, God, you're so different. When did that happen? And I said, I don't know, because it didn't happen. It was a gradual. You see, you change it in 3 ways immediately, but that's not always the case. You might immediately stop eating sugar or stop drinking wine. But there's also a cumulative, bit by bit change. Then there's a retroactive. So the cumulative and bit by bit I am changing. Then I look back and think, wow, I hardly recognize that insecure person I was. But what helps where you are now is to reframe it. Maybe you got fired, maybe you got dumped, maybe your dream didn't work out, but there's another dream. There's another job, another person. And if you look at people who've made it, they'll say, yeah, the love of my life dumped me. I got fired from a job I absolutely loved. I got kicked off a program. You know, I got replaced on a show by Ann Widdecombe. I mean, can you imagine being replaced by Ann Widdecombe? But, you know, I had to suck that up. I got replaced by her, but I can laugh about it now. But everyone you meet will have said, you know, I have failed over and over again. We know the Kentucky story, how long it took him. Luther Vandross, when they said you're an overnight success, he went, you know how long that overnight was? 12 freaking years of singing jingles until I made it. So failure is not, success is not never failing. It's how quickly you get back up.
Yep.
And we all fail. We all get knocked back, and it can shape us when we stop personalizing it. So when your teenage kid going to go, they don't want me. Go, darling, it's not you. You're not right. It's not that you're not right. My mother said that to me, darling, it's not that you're not right. You're just not right for this person. There's nothing wrong with you. But sometimes we have to start to reframe very early. That wasn't meant to be. There's something better for me. You got to be like a big rubber ball and bounce back, which is hard when something you want so badly doesn't work out, when the relationship, the job. You know, I had a phase in my life where I lost a much-wanted baby, my relationship didn't survive that, and I got replaced by Ann Widdecombe, almost all at the same time. And I'm looking at that thinking, wow, now I know why people get depressed. But I was actually quite glad, because I thought, gosh, I can use all of this in my book. So it's normal to be knocked back. It's normal. But what you have to do is this thing. This too will pass. This is not your life. It's just your life right now. Your life this month, this week, maybe even this year. But if you look at people who've made it, they'll tell you they had dark nights of the soul. You know, I used to have a diary when I was 17, 18, and I'd look back and think, oh my God, look at that. I was so sad. And here I am 3 months later having my best life, because something can only get you if it's permanent, personal, and or pervasive. What does that mean? Well, permanent means it's going to go on all the time for the rest of your life. Personal means it's just about you. And or pervasive means it's happening all the time. So when we're depressed or anxious or low or lonely, that isn't permanent. It isn't personal, because almost everyone goes there. And it's not even all pervasive when you're sleeping, when you're out walking or playing with your pet or having a moment where you're laughing. So it's not all pervasive. So if something isn't PPP, it's not going to get you. You have to get, is this permanent? Of course it isn't. You know, a relationship that's ended, I feel devastated. But it's not permanent. I know I'll find another one. Is it personal? Because that person wrote you cards going, "You're the love of my life." When they packed their bag and left, they didn't take those cards with them. Yeah. They didn't take it with them. Every time they said, "I just called to hear your voice. You're the best." So it's not even personal. It just didn't work. And it's not all pervasive. It's not going on 24 hours a day. 7 days a week. It's not going on 4 weeks of every month. It's going on some of the time. But the mind is very poor at future pacing. You know, if you talk to someone who's bullied, they can't imagine that ending. People who are depressed cannot imagine an ending because the mind works in the now. So when you're depressed, you're saying things like, I can't see a way out. I just can't imagine this ending. I can't even think about when it won't feel like this, because that's how the mind works. It works in the now. And if you are feeling depressed, you have to say, you know, that this will pass. There's a great guy on YouTube who jumped off the bridge in San Francisco. And the minute he jumped, he had a thought, oh, I want to live. He was very lucky he was picked up by a boat. And he now talks to people about feeling that he wanted to die, but at that minute realizing he didn't. And he tells me, you know, it does pass. Depression does end. Anxiety, feeling so rejected, feeling like nobody wants me. And then, of course, we hear all these songs, I'll never get over you, you're the only one. And it makes us feel love hurts, which isn't true. Love doesn't hurt. It's the most healing thing of all. But I think you have to, when you have a brilliant brain, you have a choice. Always have the same choice. Talk yourself into it or talk yourself out of it. So when you're deeply depressed, try and talk yourself out of it by saying, this is not permanent, it will pass. Right now, it feels like it's forever. When I lost that baby, you know, it does feel like, oh, you know, that's... I remember waking up, and then you wake up and you think, oh, you open your eyes and you think, oh, because you remember all the pain you're in.
Yep.
And then after a while you think, actually, the pain, I didn't wake up saying, oh, I felt a bit better. It's like a wave. It's a massive wave. Then it's a little wave. And then there's no wave at all. It does pass. So if you're in it, in deep depression, one of the things you must do is join a group, even an online group, people who've been there who can say, you know what, I felt like that. You know, we have support groups for a reason.
Yep.
People in grief, people in despair, people in sadness, reach out, because that group, that connection you get from a support group is very helpful. You try and do something. I'm one of my best friend in the whole world, who was such an amazing person, died a year and a half ago, and I was talking to her husband, who said, you know, he said, I'll never find anyone like her. And he lives in a tiny village. And he said, you know, there's nothing much here in these villages, but what I do now is I go and repair old people's. I fix their fences, I fix everything. There's no money in it, but I need to connect. I need to get out and do something. I had another friend who, her husband left her, and she was devastated. It's very interesting. She went out of her despair. She found a little place where she could help rescue animals. She's always so she was rescuing hedgehogs and drip feeding baby robins and she met a guy there doing the same thing, and they are so happily married.
I love that.
So, you know, even if you join Greenpeace, join Friends of the Earth, join picking up the litter, anything you can do. Of course, when you're anxious, you don't want to go out to a club or go partying. No. But if you can just do one thing, find one person.
Well, I had one phone call, and he doesn't probably realise at that point I was right at the point of breaking. My girlfriend at the time was about to leave me, Tallulah, and a guy called Ollie Phillips, professional rugby player, Team GB, amazing guy, called me and said, Ben, I know this is crazy, but in 6 months we're going to go to Everest and we're going to try and attempt to break a world record for the highest game of rugby at altitude. Do you want to come? And I was deep in depression, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, and I said, yeah. I had two choices. I could carry on blinkered and carry on with the intrusive thoughts. I was drinking myself to death. I didn't want to live. Or I can make one decision. I made a promise to Tallulah. I made a promise to myself, and I made a promise to Ollie that I was going to go to Everest and be part of that group and team. And that's exactly what I ended up having, connection. I had a deadline. I had 6 months to sort myself. I had a goal. I had 6 months to be able to pass the medical. And nobody in the team knew that I was going through this. Not a single person. And about 2 weeks before I had to go to Everest, I finally went for my medical. And I passed. I'd lost loads of weight. I'd been doing loads of fitness. And I started that journey. And I was actually on Everest and celebrated 6 months sober on Everest. When another amazing man, a guy called Roger Davis, who's been sober for 30 plus years. He probably won't mind me saying he's got an incredible story. He's got an amazing book talking about working for the craze and everything he's done in this world now to help people with addiction, specifically in the AA. And he just knew. He just put his big hand on my shoulder in his London accent. "What's up with you, mate?" "I'm all good." And he kept pushing me. I said, "Well, 6 months." And then he told me his story. And I just, from accepting that one call, saying yes, for me in reality was the difference between life and death. But it can be scary. And sometimes people call me, I just won't take the call. For whatever reason that day, I took the call. I said yes. And I had a chance to change my life, and I did.
And there's two things going on there. The first one is very simple. Say yes to everything. You can always say no. Once you say no, you can't say, but say yes. Say, okay, I'll come. Yeah, I'll do. I don't really want, okay, I'll come. If you can say yes to every opportunity, you can always back out. But sometimes just saying yes, it's a way of seeing a future. But something much deeper there, someone believed in you. You know, I've worked with so many, many, many suicidal teens. And if one person, but they know it, and it can say things like, "I see something in you. I see something amazing in you. You've got a gift. You've got a skill." If we can just have one person believe in us, and in fact, you had a lot. You had Tallulah, you had Ollie, but way back, you had a teacher who believed in you. I think at one stage you were written off academically.
Yep.
And my father was a head teacher, and he was a genius. That he said to me once, you know, with every kid you have to imagine they've got a sign on their forehead saying, "Please make me feel I matter." And he would reach every child as if they had that sign, "Please make me feel I matter." And that was his mission, to make every child believe they mattered. So go back to that little boy who didn't think he mattered, especially academically, who had one teacher who saw something in him, but not just saw it, told you.
Yeah.
Believed in you, because that, I think, was a big turning point for you, and it's happened again and again.
Yeah, it happened twice. I had Miss Kozlowski when I was primary, junior school, and then a guy called Mr. Hooker, deputy headmaster of Bedminster, super tough, inner city school. I'd just been suspended, 12, 13 years old, for fighting and just getting myself into trouble. And he turned around and said, "You're not coming back." I said, "What do you mean I'm not coming back?" He said, "You're not coming back to this school." And he'd spoken to all the private schools in Bristol, and I had to go and sit these entry exams, and I'm like, I'm stupid. He said, "You're not stupid. You're one of the smartest boys I know. You're just in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And you need to believe in yourself, and I'm not going to let you carry on, because I can see the way your life's going to go." Even my father said to me, "I'm worried you're either going to be a really successful criminal or a really successful businessman, but maybe both." And it was a joke, but
Of course.
it's when you have, you know, when you're a rebel without a cause as a kid in those environments, it's so easy to just go on the wrong paths. And yeah, you're right. I've been lucky. I've had two teachers just turn around.
They saw something that you couldn't see in yourself.
Yeah.
Which that's so important. They saw something in you that you couldn't see.
Yeah.
But because they saw it, you believed it must be there, because they were teachers after all. And then that expression, you're just in the wrong place. We're so often just in the wrong place, you know. We're in the wrong place. We haven't found our tribe. We're the wrong people. We feel rejected. We're with people. We haven't found our place. But you can always find that, which is again why joining a group is very useful, because you find your place. You think, "Oh, I thought no one else had done this or felt this or been through this," which is why groups, NA, AA, even groups like Mums now, obviously we're talking about men's health here, but any group will make you think, "Oh,
what about the
there
stigma?
is a place."
Because
the stigma of mental health.
Maybe more than that, you know. I talk about my challenges when I was a teenager and everything else, but I didn't have the added pressure of social media. I didn't have,
it's so much harder now.
the narrative and media. Like, say I'm a 25-year-old guy that's going through this. Like, what does that mean? Like, what do you recommend? Like, join the gym, or like, what's the easy things we can do?
I think you've got to start, when you're depressed, the things that make you feel better, eating really healthy food, like good fats. We talk about essential fats. They're essential because your brain needs them. But when you're depressed, the things that make you better, the gym, company, and eating well, are the things you don't want to do. You don't want to go to the gym. You have inertia. You're going to just eat junk food because you have inertia. So don't give yourself too much, because I'm going to go to the gym every day, I'm going to juice every day, I'm going to have an avocado. It becomes too much. I would say start with a group. Amazingly, if you have an accountability body, someone to hold you accountable, your chance of success goes up by a whopping 75%, which is why AA have the body system. So, as if I say, go out and join a group and go to the gym, just join a group online first.
Okay.
Any group, a group for men, and find someone to hold you accountable. And then maybe you can start going out a bit. You know, people think, oh, let's go to a comedy show. But, you know, when you're in the depression, you have inertia. You go inside, not outside. And a lot of people who are depressed feel that pressure. I got to go out with my friends and laugh. I got to go to the pub. And it hurts them all because they feel they got to perform. Start with a group online and then graduate to a real live group if you can find one in your community. Make sure you have an accountability buddy very, very quickly to hold you accountable and help you. And then maybe go for a walk.
Yeah.
And then maybe go to the gym. And then just start to have, you know, some fats. Even if you can just eat a few olives, a bit of oily fish, because they are called essential for a reason. But the biggest thing is get a connection going with one person, then more. Find one person to believe in yourself. The hardest thing with being depressed, you've got to do things you don't want to do. We know what we should do, but we don't want to do it. When I lost that baby, I don't want to do anything except reading. Reading was the only thing I could lose myself in a book.
Yeah.
I couldn't really go anywhere, but then I decided to write a book, and that was because I just didn't want to go out of the house. I thought, well, I might as well use this time to write. And also, this too will pass. You know, if you're going to be in the house, try and use it to read, to watch YouTube. I mean, a lot of people said, you know, I was watching a YouTube, and I saw this person talking about their life, and it gave me hope. So, you know, something simple. Go and find people. You look at Johan Hari, the most amazing man whose book is called Lost Connections. He is a genius. His book should be required reading because he's been there.
Yeah.
I love Johan Hari, but there are other people like him who are talking about depression, addictions, feeling suicidal, and how they came through it, because then there's no such thing as false hope. There's only hope.
Yeah. I think
So
that's turning
use your
social.
time.
I think that's turning social into a positive. Be
Yeah.
aware of what you're consuming. I went through it myself, where I started to unfollow certain things on Instagram or groups, or and I replaced it with really positive content. And my feed completely changed, and it really helped me. You know, we all use social media, right? But if you get into death scrolling and the content is poor, it's really negative for your mind. I have another question.
Can I just say one more thing before? And if you're addicted, people say, I've got an addictive personality, get addicted to yoga, get addicted to breathwork, get addicted to juicing.
Pick your addictions.
I've had many clients who say I was addicted, and I'm addicted to extreme sports. I'm addicted to fell running. I'm addicted to yoga. I'm addicted to ice baths. I'm addicted to juicing every morning. So don't beat yourself up. Make it a good addiction. I'm addicted to watching YouTube and learning. I'm addicted to devouring material. It isn't bad to be addicted. It's bad to be addicted to wrong things, because an addiction is classified as anything that takes you away from a bad feeling to a good one.
Completely agree. It's interesting because in my entire life, on some of my periods where I've celebrated and everybody told me how great I was, I was addictive to that cause. And I have this belief in my mind in terms of understanding the art of addiction. Understand where you're putting your focus, your attention, your time, and what you're really obsessing on. Because if you get it wrong, it can be really destructive. You get it right, you can create absolute brilliance in your life.
And people judge addicts as people who are less than, but addicts are very fragile creatures, and they're often very talented. You know, many musicians, you know, if you're creative, you're highly suggestible. That's great if you give yourself good suggestions, not great if you don't. You know, Portugal for a while had the highest level of addicts per head in the world. And they looked at that and thought, you know, this is a sense of shame for Portugal, but what can we do? So they began, rather than ostracize the addicts, to join them, to bring them in, to form a community. Instead of shutting them out as, oh, this is a bad addict, this is a person with some needs that are not being met. What are their unmet needs? Our emptiness inside is always our unmet needs. And our needs are very simple. I need to be connected, safe, significant. I need to feel I matter. I need some love in my life. So they gave them connection and safety and significance, and they became from the highest to the lowest. And then there's something else called Rat Park,
where
somebody was doing experiments with rats, and they had a very ordinary life in a cage, no stimulation. They had water with cocaine in it, and they all went for the cocaine water because it numbed them.
Mm-hmm.
But then they created Rat Park, and Rat Park had play areas and things to do, and it was quite pretty for a rat's park.
And lots of other rats.
And they all ignored the cocaine water because it wasn't the rat, it was the rat's environment that made the rat an addict. And then let's look at you. It's not you, it's your... Are you alone? Are you disconnected? Are you doing a job that doesn't make your heart sing? I mean, I've been a therapist my entire adult life, and I found that all my clients who are depressed, hundreds and thousands of them, none of them said, I've got this thing in the brain. They all said three things. I don't think I'm good enough. I'm not worthy enough, interesting enough, so many ways not be enough. I'm different, so I can't connect. I want something, but I know it's not available to me. They are the three causes of depression. So let's look at them. You think you're not enough, but that isn't true. You say it and you believe it, but it's not true. You are worthy enough, interesting enough, compelling enough. If you think you're different, so you can't connect, the very fact that you think you're different means you're the same as everyone, because it's our greatest fear. You have the same fear that everyone has, but you're not different. You're the same. You may be unique, but you're not different. We're all the same. And finally, what I want isn't available. That just isn't true. But people say, I've got the depressed gene, the alcoholic gene, the angry gene. That's not true. Everything is available. So it is not this chemical imbalance in your brain, which can't be deciphered by any doctor. It's your environment. It's the way you think about you. It's the way you act and react, and the people you're with or not with. Because addicts, we know, hang out with addicts. Alcoholics hang out with alcoholics. Just like Rat Park, change your environment in here. Keep saying, I'm enough, I'm worth it, I'm here for a reason. I do have something to offer the world. I don't know what it is, but I do have it. Work on that, and then work on the environment out there. And in that song, People Who Need People. We are tribal. We may think we're so modern, we can now get in a taxi without a driver. We've got all this amazing stuff, but we're still, no different when we're walking through the Serengeti, we are wired for connection. From the minute you're born, you're wired to find connection, avoid rejection. And we're now finding more and more disconnection. So find connection anywhere you can.
Yep.
Believe in one person. Let one person believe in you. Don't feel it's bad to go to AA or NA or any group, because it's not a group, it's connection, and we need it more than anything in the world. I mean, if you went to a pet shop, for instance, all the puppies, all the mice, all together. And if you said, hey, I'm going to go to, can I have a pet? They go, well, I'm out all day. They go, no, of course you can't have a pet. Why not? Well, it can't be on its own. If you went to a dog somewhere, can I take a cat home? But I'm away all the time. They'd go, absolutely no. They come and look at your home and they want to see, are you there? They might say, you need to take two. They need company. So we understand animals. In the zoo, we campaign to make sure the swan has a partner, the leopard, but we don't do that to ourselves. We live in our little boxes alone.
Yep.
With YouTube getting our stuff delivered by Amazon, you can live alone and not see a soul. You can get a driverless cab, a driverless delivery, go to the bank, there's no one there. But we don't do that to animals, but we do it to ourselves. Then we wonder why we're depressed. We're depressed because we are ignoring our primary need for connection and self-worth and to believe in ourselves.
Yeah. And the statistics are alarming.
Horrifying.
World Health Organization talking about nearly 1 billion people dealing with mental health, 1 in 7. And the statistics are getting worse and worse. My own experience, I've lost 3 male friends to suicide. And again, it's probably part of why I'm doing what I'm doing now. Myself, for the loss of those friends, and to try and help as many people as we can. Can I turn it around? If you're a friend or a family member and you can see and you're witnessing somebody you love dealing with mental health or depression or just maybe a change in personality, what's your advice? How do we become a...
Yeah, well, let's say you have a friend who's depressed. The worst thing is just not go, hey, I've got tickets to go to the comedy store, or let's go and have a massage, or let's go out and get drunk. Take some really nice healthy food full of those essential fats and just go for an hour.
Just be
and
there.
then leave.
Yeah.
And then go for an hour again. Don't expect anything of them. Turn up with some food, maybe offer to do their laundry, but don't expect much and don't turn up for too long, but just keep going back and keep going back and finding little things. Maybe you can play cards for half an hour, or I don't know, watch something on television if that's possible. But just be there, but not for too long, remember. And try and explain to the person with depressed the truth. The truth is that I am flawed and you are flawed, and you and I have a beautiful flawed relationship because we're flawsome. So the unhappiest people are those who want to be perfect. And of course, as a rugby player, you want to be the perfect rugby, the perfect tennis player, the perfect husband, the perfect partner, the perfect parent. But the truth is you cannot. Here's the finishing line for perfection. Run towards it. It moves and it moves. You can't win it because you can't even complete it. So go back and say this. I'm a flawed person having flawed relationships with flawed people. We're all flawed. But that's a wonderful thing because now I can accept I'm flawed. You won't be disappointed in me. I won't be disappointed in you. So be flawsome, but never try to be perfect. People who try to be perfect are the loneliest, unhappiest people in the world because they're in a race without a finishing line.
Yep.
The basis of all friendships is not am I perfect, it's can I share my vulnerability with you. We like people who share their vulnerabilities. That's why group therapy works again. So your vulnerabilities make you real and authentic and actually very, very appealing. You know, I know you had a little dog with a missing eye. I had a little cat that was blind. I had a cat with a missing tail, but their flaws made them even more lovable.
So much.
I loved my little blind cat the most because he was so sweet in his vulnerability.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we think, oh, I mustn't show you that. You won't like me. I must show you my perfections. I'm going to shut down. But that's the wrong story.
Yeah.
The basis of friendship is I like people who share their vulnerabilities with me. That's the basis of friendship for you too. Share your vulnerability. Don't hide it. Don't run away from it. And don't try to be perfect. Because that road is to loneliness and unhappiness. The flawed road is to, wow, I'm flawed. And people like me because of my flaws, not despite them. Because it makes you real and authentic. But the media tells us the opposite. And you can go on the media, you can ask people to rate you like an egg.
Yeah.
What am I, an A, B, C, D, or you're an E?
I think it reminds me, I think I spoke to you about it before because I know you know him, Sir Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
When I was going through those early stages of giving up alcohol and living that type of life, and he turned around and somebody asked him, you know, about the mistakes he's made. And he turned around and said that, you know, I'm a sinner. I'm an old sinner. But we all are. And he said, but I'm okay with that. I forgive myself.
Yeah.
And it really hit me hard because what I realized is I was seeking forgiveness from everybody. Everybody and anybody. You know, all of a sudden when I was going through it, I was like, okay, cool. I need to say sorry to all these people. But I hadn't forgiven myself.
Yeah.
And that was a really, really interesting, very painful, but incredibly powerful experience for me to be able to get to a point to say, I do forgive myself. Sure. I'm a good person. I love myself. Because it's really hard. It's so hard to forgive
and yet
yourself.
every religious tome says this, to err is human, to forgive is divine. The Bible says that, the Quran says that, the Torah says that in different ways. You have to forgive yourself. You know, Napoleon said, a man who never made a mistake, well, he never made anything. Because the truth is, without mistakes, you don't learn. Every mistake you make, you know, a baby doesn't go, I fell over when I tried to crawl. I tried to eat a banana, it seems to have got it in my ear. I've made a mistake. They just keep going. So you have to make mistakes in order to learn and grow. So if you never make a mistake, you will never learn and grow. So never beat yourself up for making a mistake. And remember, to err is human, to forgive is divine. Don't beat yourself up for making a mistake because you're allowed to make a mistake. But what you're not allowed to do is to beat up your own body, the most mind-boggling, priceless thing you'll ever own.
Yep.
Because you're a flawed person doing something human, making a mistake. You know, we never beat up our babies because they drop something, they can't speak. My little girl, when she first learned to speak, couldn't say the. She'd go, "Fuh, I think." And I go, "Darling, you've got to put your mouth," and go, "I think." And she got it eventually. It took her a while. But we find children quite endearing when they make mistakes and when they can't pronounce them. And they go, "We got mices in the house." We think that's quite sweet, but we beat ourselves up. You have to make a mistake to grow. If you don't make a mistake, you won't grow. We're all about growth. You want to expand and not contract, but you can't expand without making mistakes. I have made many, 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 many mistakes in my life. But most people, when they're dying, don't regret what they did. They regret what they didn't do. So do it and make a mistake. That's how you grow.
Reminds me of a quote my grandfather used to say to me: "Son, you'll never regret the things you did. You'll only ever regret the things you didn't do." So thank you, Grandad, for all the mistakes that I made. Because I thought,
and most people, on their deathbed too, they don't even fear dying. They fear living a life without meaning and impact. And if you think, well, I'm never going to make a massive meaning or impact, could you believe in one person? Because if one person breathes easier on the planet because something you did or said, that's impact. Can you impact just one person? Can you be that one person who says to someone, I believe in you, I see something amazing in you? Because so many men go into depression because they never heard that. They never heard it, they never experienced it, they never witnessed it. But we could say, hey, I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to say that to people. I see something amazing in you. I see a gift, a talent, a kindness, anything at all. If you believe in one other person, you'll help minimize depression and you'll have made an impact.
I think that's such a powerful message. I don't know, anybody watching this, just to be able, if there's a great man in your life, whether it's your father, your brother, your boyfriend, your husband, a colleague at work, to just turn around and focus on the positive. Because I think in life, with media, with social, we're all so quick to judge. And I think judgment should be about looking at people and finding the best in them. And if you find the best and you say this, I think you're amazing with this, this or this, it amplifies them to continue to do and be those good things. And as a man, you don't often get, when you become a man, praise as a child, as a teenager, as a young man, for the things I was doing and achieving in my life. Now at 40-something, very rarely do you get told that. So I think I'm going to tell some friends today.
I think that's why so many men go to football, because it's that camaraderie, that sense of belonging to a tribe. But, we can shine a light on them and say, okay, here's your mission. Should you accept it? Find one person to believe in. And while you're on the way to believing in another person, start believing in yourself. What would you say to a kid you saw coming up that was lost, no parents? You'd say, you're a great kid. I see something in you. You're smart. You're compelling. You're kind. You're cool, whatever. But while you're busy thinking about what that lost kid would like to hear, then forget to say it to yourself. We have to parent ourselves. We have to go back and upgrade our inner child. And something we call in IT the missing bit, the words we never heard.
Nice, yeah.
I was working with a kid many years ago, actually, who was really predicted to go to jail. He was an angry kid, a violent kid. But he was really a hurt kid. Behind anger is always hurt. And I said to him, you're a hurt kid. And he went, nobody loves me. My parents gave you to my grandparents. They're really old. I never saw my mum and dad. They've got new families, and they're not interested in me. No one cares about me. And that was a hurt that became anger. I said, but that's not 100% true, because your auntie paid for your session, so she cares. I care about you. And in a couple of minutes, you're going to care. We've gone from no people to 3. And I said, I'd love to give you a great dad. But, you weren't gifted a great dad. Your dad was 17 when you were born. He was growing up with you. You didn't get a mature dad. It's a shame that your stepbrother has, but you didn't. But the next best thing I could give you is, what would a great dad say to you? And you went, I don't know. 17, whatever. I said, no, but you do know. You know. A great dad would say, I'm proud of you. You're the kind of kid any dad would love to have. I said, so let's just say it. I know it's silly, so let's say, you're a great kid. You're the son any dad would be proud of. And we began to say, and of course he didn't like it. And then all of a sudden he really went for it and started saying, and you're cool, and you're smart, and you're really good looking, and you're good at sport. And I said, so there you are. If I put lotion on my skin, it will go in no matter where it's come from, whether it's expensive and organic or full of chemicals, it's still going to go in. And these words are going to go in. So I asked him every day to just imagine he had a great dad who had a degree in raising his son. And what would he say? Which is not rocket science. He'd say, how lucky am I to have you? You're the best son any man could have. This is not hard work. It's just unfamiliar work.
Yeah.
So, darling, this is not hard. is unfamiliar. But guess what? We can make it familiar by repetition. Every day I want you to say, while you're in the shower, 10 things. I'm a great son. Anyone be proud of me. I'm smart. I matter. I'm interesting. And that kid now is so successful, engaged, successful, because in fact he realized the missing bit, the words he'd never heard, he was waiting for someone else, giving that need to someone else. We have to do it ourselves. Don't wait. Think of the word you never heard and start to say them. I'm the favorite. I'm super smart. I'm super lovable. I'm magnetically, whatever it is. Because the mind doesn't know or care where it comes from. It will let it go in. Just like oil is balm for your skin, words are balm for your soul. But we're waiting for someone else to say, you're so amazing. And we have to say it. Because that's both liberating and empowering. And the opposite of needy. So anything you need to hear in your life, don't wait another second, just say, I'm amazing, I'm smart, I'm lovable, I'm talented, I'm significant. Whatever it is you need to hear, say it every day. Because your mind doesn't know or care where it comes, it will sink in. And when you were a kid, it was your parents' job. But now it's your job, and that's a good thing because nobody can do that better than you. Because you know the missing bits. So fill in the blanks. Do it. It can change your entire life.
I think we can almost end there. This is what innerbelief.com is about.
Inside. It comes from inside.
Yeah, we've got obviously our therapists on platform, but we're going to use it to be able to give people access to obviously all the incredible personal development.
All the audios.
The hypnotherapy, the vortexes, the talks. I think one of the first things you spoke to me about, and I was going through a tough time, and you said, Ben, every thought becomes a feeling and every feeling becomes a behavior.
Yeah.
And my level of mindfulness around my thoughts, the first thought when I wake up, the thoughts I'm having when I'm dealing with a stressful or tough conversation, and then identifying how that makes me feel, and as a result of that feeling, how I behave is so exceptionally powerful. So we'll probably tag some personal development products, some of the hypnosis, and maybe I Am Enough into the comments in the podcast, then we'll share them in the links.
Sure. And remember, we all live in a world of our thinking. And every thought we think creates a physical reaction and an emotional response. If you stop thinking the thought, it disappears. You can't, if you stop thinking that thought, it goes away. So if I think every day I don't matter, then I'm going to feel sad. And how I behave is going to probably be no behavior because I'm thinking a negative thought, feeling a negative feeling, and having a negative behavior. If I stop that thought, if I take the energy of the thought, I can't think the thought. And if I don't think the thought, it goes away. So how do you not think the thought? Well, if your thought is, I've got nothing to offer the world, flip that, I've got something to offer the world. Now you've flipped the thought, you're going to flip the feeling and the behavior. So your thoughts are yours, they belong to you. You're the one thinking negative thoughts. And you can change it, flip it, reframe it. Again, it isn't hard, it's unfamiliar. But your job is to make it familiar, make being positive familiar, make praising yourself familiar, make criticizing yourself unfamiliar. That in itself will change your life. Make praising yourself familiar and make criticizing yourself unfamiliar. Just start with that. Because if that's all you ever did, it's enough.
I love that.
And you're enough. Thanks for tuning in.
I'm going to ask one final thing before we finish. If you're watching this and there's a man or multiple men in your life that you love and you want to give some praise to, tag them in this post, tell them what you want to tell them, and share this, and hopefully they can watch this and hear about, the power of being vulnerable, and that it's normal. We all go through this, and look at MarisaPeer.com, look on Inner Belief. There may be something there to help you, but please tag a man or many men that mean something to you. Tell them what they mean to you, and hopefully this gives them some value. So I've been Ben Harvey.
I'm Marisa Peer, and share this, tag, share, send it to someone else. Because the worst thing is to think we're alone. We're not alone. There's always someone that you can reach out to. And we're here for you.